According to my research, the term filet crochet as we know it today was first used in 1912, and before this time frame it was known as square crochet. You may still see this name being used in some regions of the world today. Filet crochet resembles a mesh formation. To crochet a photograph, picture, shape, anything like that into your mesh, you must crochet in between the crossing points to fill in the boxes. It's like low resolution photographs where the picture becomes more obvious when you step back and view it from a distance. The clarity of your filet crochet is very much dependent on your hook size as well as the yarn materials that you choose. Filet crochet today, as well as in the past, is usually presented in the form of a graph, and that's simply because the instructions can be the size of a mini novel. The graph can be read in two ways. Either the pictorial image or the shape can either be the solid within the mesh, or the mesh itself can be hollowed out and making the background being solid. That is completely up to you. In the diagrams that we find online as well as in books, it will indicate on how to read it. However, you are the artist, and that creativity on being able to explore that is completely up to you. Another fabulous feature of filet crochet is that the diagrams can be interchangeable, where you can add other diagrams to your work. This would allow you to make letters, to make words, to make sentences, as well as you could add different characters or different elements to your project in order to make it very unique for yourself. It's very, very easy to do this. Another great feature with filet crochet is that it's not dependent on you being right or left-handed. That's the beauty about it. You can be either or and still have great success. When following a pattern, like any typical crochet pattern, you will be going upward in a snaking back and forth formation. For example, on the first line you are going and following the pattern from left to right. Therefore, the second line you're going to follow the pattern going from right to left. You will just still turn your work, but you will follow the pattern going up in a snaking formation. This allows you to follow the diagram with ease. Filet crochet in nearly all crochet diagrams is not like an old-fashioned typewriter where we stop at one line and go back to the first part of the graph to restart the next. We simply keep going up. When creating numbers in the alphabet characters, you will definitely have one good side, and the characters will be legible and easy to read, and obviously on the opposite side it'll show the characters as being backwards. So I guess enough talk, let's try a sampler project together. In the more information of this video, I have provided you 2 filet crochet worksheets, and I have filled out one for you that we're going to crochet along with in the next part, and there's a second sheet that I provided to you that is blank, because you may want to try your own skills and make your own shapes to really kind of push your skills even further. So just in a moment I will crochet along with you as we complete this mini exercise together. And really, have you figured out what the shape is yet? Because you will by the end of this tutorial today. So this is the US terminology version of our filet crochet along, and this is the worksheet, and we're going to be filling in the gaps where we have to create the shape that you see. So if you're trying to figure out how many chains to start off with, it's very easy. Using the pattern books, it'll tell you how many double crochets are involved when it comes to filling inside the block. So for example, the way that I do it here is that we know that the outside will be 1 double crochet. Here's the symbol for it. And to fill in the block, we know according to the instructions that will be told to you is that there will be 2 inside to fill it in. So this is how I remember it myself, is that if we know that this here is right on a line, so therefore another one will exist right here on the next line coming up. So you can safely assume at this point is that you're gonna have 3 stitches. So if you're figuring out your chain, it's very easy. So you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that'll tell you how many that is. Times that by 3, which gives you a total of 18 chains so far. And then of course you have 3 more chains to go along the bottom. So you have 19, 20, 21, and of course we have to work up going upward. So we have 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So that's how the easiest way to figure that out. So no matter how many boxes you have, as long as that you know what it is before it starts to repeat again, you can safely times that number by a certain amount. So let's begin the next process of our tutorial here, and we are going to figure ourselves out. So grab your yarn and any kind of crochet hook you want to use, and let's begin. So let's begin our tutorial. I'm using a 5.5mm or a size I crochet hook today. I'm using Red Heart with Love just to do this tutorial sample. So we already figured out, according to the instructions, how many boxes there were. There were 7, and I told you what the math was to figure that out. So we just have to simply chain 24. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and go all the way to 24. Now meet back up in just a few seconds. So if you look at the instructions, you will notice that there's solid circles inside every one of the squares going across the bottom. So essentially, to start off with today, we need to go forth from the hook. So we need to go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that'll take you into our first double crochet. And what I'm doing here for myself is that normally I would come in the front side of the chain, but I want to turn it over and put it into the back looping up area. And the reason why I'm doing that is it just makes it a beautiful finish on the outside, especially if you're going to place a border. So once you turn it over once, you're going to see these just popping out at you, and I want you to double crochet yourself all the way back across this line. So let's verify the actual chain that we just did plus putting in our post, because we went forth from the hook. The easiest way to figure out how many posts that we should end up with, and the posts are obviously the double crochets going up and down, is that we could determine that by the number of boxes very easily. If we know that 3 equal 1 before repeating the pattern, we can go 3 times the 7 boxes, which gives you 21. And of course, when you have the repeat, right, the first one is included, so therefore on the end you're gonna actually have the concept of a double crochet on the end. So that gives you a total count of 22. Now as we start working backwards right here, is that we are going to be filling in the first set with the being a solid, but then the next one is empty. And you will notice the instructions on this side is that when it says chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and then double crochet in the next, that's when it's empty. So essentially we just have to chain going across so that we remain to keep that empty. You still have to do the double crochet in the next one, and then the next 2 are going to be chaining as well to create that empty space. And then in the solids, of course, we have our ones on the outside of the circle, but then the ones on the, because it's a full circle, we're going to have to fill that in to make it solid. So let's begin. We're going to be right here working our way across. If I was off camera and doing this on my own, I'd be getting a highlighter and just making it very easy for myself to follow along. So let's do that, and let's follow up with our worksheet right now. So we're about to begin the first block here, and we're going to chain up 3 as we normally would with double crochet. And essentially the first block is solid. So that means then that if that's solid, the next 2 are inside the blocking formation. So they're going to be a double crochet, 1 in each. And then the next one is the next crossing point of the first box. Now according to our instructions, the next 2 boxes are empty. So what we have to do is just chain 2, 1 and 2. We skip 2 down here and go to the third for a double crochet, and that's 1 box done. And this is a beauty thing about filet, it goes really quickly when you do that. So there's going to be another box. So 1 and 2. We skip the next 2 that are on the bottom. Go to the third for double crochet. So according to our instructions, the next block is going to be filled in solid. So this is the crossing points. So the next 2 are inside the next block. So we are going to double crochet, 1 in each. And of course we have to finish the block with the double crochet as well. And according to the instructions, the next 2 blocks are also empty. So we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, skip 2 here, come down. So that's block number 1 done, and do it again. So chain 2, skip the next 2, coming in, and the last block is solid. So that means that the next 2 are solid, double crochets in each. And don't forget the outside chain has to also be applied, because that's the remainder of your last block. So you go in the top of the third chain to do that. So this is what we have going on at this point. Moving up to the next line, we are now going to look at it, and apparently according to the next line we have to duplicate what we're already seeing going on. So we're gonna chain up 2. So 1, 2 and 3, sorry, chain up 3. The next 2 are part of the first block, which is solid. And of course we have to finish off the block with the double crochet. So that's block 1, and now we have to repeat exactly what we see. So we're gonna chain 2, 1 and 2, going into the double crochet here because that's part of the crossing points of the graph, and then chain 2, 1 and 2, coming back into the next one that's available on the other side. And according to our instructions, the next block is solid, which exists. So you can see that here's the outside of that block. These two ones right in the middle are the inside of the block. So we're finishing that. According to our instructions, the next two blocks are empty again. So we chain 2, 1 and 2. We come in to the middle section there to complete that graphing crossing points, and then again 1 and 2, and then coming into the next one. So essentially the blocks are sitting on top of each other, and then of course 2 double crochets in a row. That's the inside of the last block, and of course we have to do the outside of the last block, so into the top of the chain 3 with a double crochet, and that completes that line. So that looks apparently right according to my instructions. So we're gonna turn our work and move up the next line, and it shows us that 2 blocks are solid, and then there's 3 empties, and then 2 blocks on the outside. So let's begin. We're gonna chain 3, 1, 2 and 3. So the first block is solid, so that means that the next 2 are inside of that block, and the 1 is the final of that block. And remember I said it's solid, so this here is underneath of it. So what we have to do, this is where it applies to going around the chain. So we want to put 2 double crochets into that chaining space to fill in that block, and then of course we want to come in the outside one there. So we just filled in the next block, and it says the next 3 are now empty. So 1, 2 is jumping over for the next block, and then 1, 2, and essentially these 2 are in the center of that block, so then that means that the outside one here is the connecting point, and then 1 and 2 jumping over to looking for the next crossing points, and then the final 2 blocks are solid. So here's where it's empty underneath, so we fill it in with 2 double crochets. We finalize that block and begin our last one. So we're gonna fill in our last block. And then don't forget that outside one. Like so, this is a really good test for being able to judge your sides. So that's what we have going on so far. So we're gonna get just started again. So we're gonna turn our work, and so for the next 2 rounds we're gonna repeat exactly what we have here. You can just start off again chaining 3, 1, 2 and 3, and just do exactly the last row but 2 more times. And so I'm gonna meet you back up. I'm gonna do that off camera. Keep doing that, and then we're gonna switch up as we go because the blocks start changing their location once again. So do 2 more just like the last line you just did. So when I left you, you were still making these 2 blocks, so you should have them. When I left you to do these 2 lines, so you should have 3 lines that look identical, very much like a tic-tac-toe board. And so now we're ready to move up onto the next line, and it shows us that we have a solid, a blank, solid, blank, blank, solid. So here we go. So this is when you need to pay attention to where you see the blocks happening. So if this is always the intersection points, you can just count 2 out, and then you'll see the next intersection point there. So what we have here is that we have chain 3, so 1, 2 and 3. The first block is solid, so that means that the next 2 are 1 double crochet each, and of course we have to finish that block off, and then it says 2 is the next one that's empty. So we just 1 and 2, we skip over the 2 and just go into the third, and the next block is also empty. So 1 and 2, skip over again, just go right into the next crossing point, and it says now the middle one is solid. So this is the middle here, so we're going to put in 2 double crochets into that chain 2 space underneath, and of course we want to finish our block off, and so the next 2 blocks are empty. So we have to go 1 and 2, chain 1, 2, just go into the next crossing point, 1 and 2, so we skip over, so 1, 2, go to the third, and so then we just want to finish the final block like this. So we just fill it in with the 2 double crochets for the inside of the block, and of course we have to go on the outside chain, top of the chain, to make that complete. So that's what you have going on so far. So let's turn our work one more time here, and what we have going on is we look at it and we just have to repeat the last row. So 1, 2 and 3, and we want to fill in the first one. So do this line just like you did the last, and obviously the blocks have moved their locations, but you just want to repeat exactly what you see and just follow the pattern. So continue to do that, and we'll meet back up in the next one where that one is changed again. Okay, I left you, so now you're going to have 2 that are on top because you repeated the last line, and so we are on the second last line of our graph, and so it says the first block is solid and then everything else is empty in between until we get to the last block. So let's begin. So 1, 2 and 3. So the first one is solid, so we go to fill that in. Very easy peasy. And so now the remainder of the blocks and the internal, except for the last one, are going to be empty. So it's just 1, if I can just grab it, 1 and 2. And so we just look for the next cross section, the crossing points underneath. And so the fillet area goes really quick. So 1 and 2, because you're not having to fill it in, so you're basically not doing as much stitch work. And then 1 and 2, because I told you that it's all going to be empty, so we just look for this. This is one block, these are the 2 centers, therefore we come into the outside one, and then of course 1, 2, the next crossing point underneath, and then 1, 2, just like this. And so then this is the final block, so we want to fill that in. And don't forget that very last post on the outside to make that complete. So let's begin our next row. To begin our final row that you see on the chart here is that we have 2 solids in a row and then 3 blanks and then 2 solids. So 1, 2 and 3. Let's fill in the first block so that we have the 2 in the middle. And then the next one is the crossing point one. And remember I said there's 2 solids, so then that means that this next spot here is going to be filled in this time. And of course we do our crossing points. And so now the next 3, let me just do that properly, the next 3 are going to be empties. So 1 and 2, we look for the crossing points because it's just easier. And then 1 and 2. And then 1 and 2. And it says according to our diagram that we have the last 2 blocks are full. So we're going to fill that as this one in. Don't forget our crossing point. So it's very much like a graph, as I've mentioned before. So you're just filling it in the space, and then we're going to do our last block. And just for kicks, it does not say to do this on the pattern, but I want you to turn your work and I want you to double crochet as if you're doing it. So I haven't shown you how to do that on the graph, so I want you to double crochet into each one and to put 2 into the middle, and then we'll call this sample quits, and then maybe you can actually figure out what we've been crocheting this entire time. So let's continue to do that. Meet you back up in a sec, and we'll just quickly review and then let you go, and you can get on with the next video in the process. So here's our finished tutorial sample, and you have to step back. Remember what I said about the pattern looking more clear as you step back. So as you get further and further away from this, this may make a lot more sense to you as you get further back. One thing I love about filet crochet is that when you do these gapping spaces, you can really zoom along on your work and really make it really quite fun. Until next time, I'm Mikey on behalf of redheart.com as well as thecrochetcrowd.com. We'll see you.